Dysfunction in the city council after 2 failed resolutions condemning hate.
To not condemn violence against a minority is to put ourselves back 50 years.
A local rabbi speaks out on how this is affecting the Jewish community and the city as a whole, plus growing backlash to some university presidents' controversial response to anti-Semitism on campus, the consequences those schools are facing. Look at this video. City police are searching for this woman after she's seen cutting into the side of a Tesla.
Almost sick to my stomach and just in disbelief.
The frustrations from the owner over the seemingly random crime. Marylanders still waiting for solutions to juvenile crime plaguing communities. We're pressing lawmakers if it's their top priority.
We need to strengthen it for sure, okay?
What does that look like?
Tracking showers moving in this weekend. I'm breaking down what to expect if you're heading to the Ravens game.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
We will not be silent. There have been many people in the city of Baltimore that have experienced hate, Jewish and also Islamic.
This resolution says to release hostages that are being held in Israel. I've never heard that before. The first time I've ever seen that was in this resolution.
The back and forth battle continues as members of the Baltimore City Council clash over messaging about the war in Israel. 2 separate resolutions condemning hate has council members at odds, and now Jewish community members and a mayoral candidate are speaking out about the dysfunction. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for joining us. Fox 45 is looking into the fallout surrounding the war and in Baltimore and across the country from Israel. We have team coverage tonight. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins looks at some university presidents now under fire for their response to anti-Semitism. But we begin with Fox 45's Keith Daniels and the latest surrounding the city council. Keith.
Well, Kai, those 2 resolutions failed just within days of each other in the same week. And we heard from Council President Nick Mosby, who called those discussions, quote, disgraceful. And tonight, more scrutiny.
I am so sorry this is happening in our world today.
A divided Baltimore City Council this week over what some members considered a simple, straightforward resolution, which called for members to condemn the October Hamas attack on Israel and anti-Semitism. But instead of that simple vote, discord erupts in the chamber Thursday among council members at odds over the issue.
We will not be silent. There have been many people in the city of Baltimore that have experienced hate, Jewish and also Islamic.
Tonight, hearing from mayoral candidate and former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon.
I was really dismayed, and I couldn't believe it.
Dixon on the radio Friday contemplating the council's lack of movement on the issue and considering the point behind the protest.
I wasn't clear about it. I was like, okay, here's a resolution, dealing with the senseless violence of Hamas. Pass the resolution, show our support, and let's move on to other issues that are affecting us.
The issue at City Hall.
We here in Baltimore, we're not in the war. We here in Baltimore ought to be able to support each other and defend each other.
Resonating with residents like Rabbi Rachel Sabbath at the Har Sinai Oheb Shalom congregation on Park Heights Avenue. The rabbi has family members, including her 87-year-old mother-in-law in Israel, amid the violence. Sabbath searching now, trying to find understanding behind the city council's failed resolutions.
I would hope that a city council would be able to come together and condemn violence against any minority. So the failure to do that, I think, is very dangerous.
I just wasn't really clear about what was going on and what the motive was behind it.
Well, the 4 council members say they did not support the initial resolution because they say they didn't support it because it did not condemn all forms of hate. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Now the back and forth with the city council follows controversial statements across the state in response to the war. The director of the Council of American Islamic Relations, also known as CARE, Zainab Chowdhury, was suspended, then reinstated to the Hate Crime Commission after a series of social media posts, including one comparing Israeli supporters to Nazis. Attorney General Anthony Brown said his office never had the power to suspend Ms. Chowdhury, but that's something he's trying to change. Nonprofit CASA of Maryland is facing backlash because of its executive director's comments on the war, expressing support for Palestinians' fight for freedom. CASA apologized, saying the group was trying to shine a spotlight on the innocent Israeli and Palestinian families caught in the conflict, but they apologized for causing pain and confusion. At the University of Maryland, the words Holocaust 2.0 were written on a sidewalk during a pro-Palestinian rally. That group organizing the rally condemned those words. The presidents of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania are all under fire to resign. It follows their response to anti-Semitism on campus. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins continues our team coverage.
After testifying on Capitol Hill Tuesday and then clarifying remarks the following evening, University of Pennsylvania's president Liz McGill faced growing calls to resign.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
McGill, along with Harvard's president Claudine Gay and MIT's Sally Kornbluth, have come under fire after appearing to evade answering questions about whether students calling for the genocide of Jews violates the school's codes of conduct.
I think their statements were abhorrent. Trying to contextualize what constitutes harassment, Jewish students are terrified on these campuses.
Now the House Committee on Education and the Workforce has announced an investigation into the universities, their policies, and disciplinary procedures. In a statement, Republican Chairwoman Virginia Fox said, quote, "Committee members have deep concerns with their leadership and their failure to take steps to provide Jewish students the safe learning environment they are due under law."
If somebody says, I want all Jewish people dead, they should be removed from campus. If someone says, I want all Armenians dead or all black people, I mean, it's very obvious to me that creates an environment that's not safe enough to learn in.
The concerns are not the pro-Palestinian protests on campuses themselves, but the anti-Semitic language used by some protesters and concerning actions toward Jewish students. The House Committee on Education and the Workforce says their investigation isn't just limited to the three institutions and that other universities should expect investigations as well. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
Also happening nationally, the man who allegedly fired a shotgun twice in the air outside of a synagogue in Albany, New York yesterday made his first court appearance today. The 28-year-old waived his right to a detention hearing. The incident happened outside of Temple Israel Synagogue hours before a Hanukkah observance was set to begin. No one was hurt. That shooter faces a charge of possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. Well, the United States vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. 13 countries voted in favor, while Britain abstained. During the debate, the Palestinian ambassador cited the thousands killed or injured in Israel's assault on Gaza, saying, quote, enough is enough. Israel's ambassador says a ceasefire would only extend the war, and the only option for peace, in their words, is to eliminate Hamas. In Israel, over the past 24 hours, the IDF says they've carried out strikes on about 450 targets. It's the highest number reported since the end of a truce with Hamas a week ago. Legislative and local leaders are looking at ways to fight juvenile crime. Today, lawmakers gathered in Cambridge on the Eastern Shore to talk about that and other issues. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost went to the Eastern Shore asking about their solutions to the problem.
This winter meeting is a chance for legislative leaders to hear directly from local leaders about what's going on at home. And one thing is clear, juvenile crime remains a top priority for almost everyone.
We think that is key in moving the state forward,
It's the winter conference for the Maryland Association of Counties. And in a packed ballroom, juvenile crime top of mind during the legislative forecast.
And of course, we are talking about juvenile crime these days.
It is not a problem that is localized to one jurisdiction or one region. We
know that we're going to have to do something about that in this session.
Senate President Pro Tem Malcolm Augustine says there needs to be a framework in place for holding young people accountable. But when asked about specifics after, the Democrats' second in command in the Senate was short on specifics.
I think that we want to make sure that the law enforcement and the prosecutors have the tools that they need to hold people who commit crimes accountable. I believe that the legislation that we've passed thus far does provide them with tools, with protections for people at the same time. So we'll make sure we have balance.
So if you think that the accountability measures and the tools are there, what's going wrong right now then?
Part of, I think, I'm saying we need to strengthen it for sure, okay?
What does that look like?
What does it look like for us to strengthen some of our measures right now? That's what I'm saying to you, that I'm looking at Chairman Smith, things that they have been working on.
Senator Augustine punting to Judiciary Chairman Will Smith, who's already on record saying he doesn't want to make large repeals of the juvenile justice laws. As prosecutors raise red flags about the current juvenile laws,
they come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day.
They know that, nothing's really going to happen to them if they keep their crime in a certain limit of types of crime.
We all have the same sad song, no matter where we are in the state.
The partisan divide on the cause of the juvenile crime increasing is forming.
It's been a little point of irritation to me that in 9 years in office, I've never once tried to attribute crime trends to single policy decision.
I think it is. I think that we are seeing this increase in crime from juveniles because they know what the laws are.
But for now, these lawmakers who see the issue differently are facing pressure from people at home who are demanding change. Some Democrats here tell me they do realize that the Department of Juvenile Services could be doing more, especially when it comes to kids and guns. But again, there's been a lot of talk, and so far, not a clear plan to move forward. In Cambridge, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
The two laws at the forefront of the juvenile crime crisis are the Juvenile Justice Reform Act and the Child Interrogation Protection Act. The first prohibits children under 13 from being criminally prosecuted for nonviolent offenses. The other states police can't question any child as a suspect or witness without notifying parents and getting approval from an attorney first. Some Democrats in Annapolis are standing by those juvenile justice laws. As Mackenzie mentioned, Senator Will Smith of Montgomery County says that the laws need to be in place for some time in order to see results.
Laws that we put in place are going to take a couple of years to fully see the kind of the fruit of the foundations that we've laid and the seeds that we've planted. I, for one, am not interested in rolling back the reforms that we put in place last year.
Well, police continue to tell Fox 45 News they're seeing the impact of these laws, saying young people don't fear consequences.
Kids get out of the car, and the minute you stop them and you pull them aside, the first thing they say to you is, "Are you going to call my mother?" Because they know they're not. They know they're underage and they know they can't get in trouble.
It would be like legislature raising the speed limit to 100 miles per hour on interstate highways and then questioning why we're not writing more speeding tickets on the interstate.
Well, 72-year-old Donna Talent was carjacked at gunpoint in front of her Baltimore County home in Rosedale last week, leaving her with a concussion and a black eye. A 16-year-old and 15-year-old were charged. The Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office tells Fox 45 News the 16-year-old will be charged as an adult. Talent says those responsible need to face consequences.
These kids don't have consequences, and that's what makes me very angry. And I am furious, and I'm going after these. I want to prosecute. I want to see some type of retribution.
Talent says she'll read a victim impact statement when the 15-year-old appears in court later this month. We want to know what you think. Have lawmakers waited too long to address the juvenile crime crisis? So far, 96% of those who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you feel you're not being heard, we'd like you to contact them. We have their phone numbers and email addresses on the screen.
We finally had higher temperatures and sunshine this afternoon. It was a great start to the weekend, and that nice trend continues tomorrow. But it's Sunday when the next weather maker arrives. Not only will it lead to rain across our state, but really a lot of the East Coast looking at the chance for showers, and at times there could be heavy rain leading to a couple inches across our state. You want to make sure that you are staying safe over the weekend. Coming up, I'll have a closer look at the timing of the rain and how it could impact your Sunday plans in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight. Fox 45 News obtains video showing a woman cutting the side of a Tesla. We hear from the frustrated car owner as police search for the suspect. The future of the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards seems uncertain right now as questions over the team's deal with the state linger. The conflicting reports and why lawmakers are at odds. And Fox 45 News is tracking your tax dollars. After the break, we press lawmakers on whether the state will ask taxpayers for more money as Maryland faces a looming budget deficit. Fox 45 News presses lawmakers on the blueprint for Maryland's future, or the Kerwin plan. It pumps $30 billion additional tax dollars into schools for the first decade, then $4 billion each year after that. Well, now local jurisdictions say they don't have the money the state is requiring them to contribute to the plan.
We can't afford all of this.
We've got this hefty bill to pay. We don't have the money to pay it. The blueprint for Maryland's future is a worthy program, but it is ambitious. And it is one that requires substantially higher funding levels from those jurisdictions that are already struggling.
But there's no transparency. They've got to have a plan that actually results in change. And they've got to be able to tell us this: if we put our money here, this is what you're going to get. And if we don't deliver it, the money will recycle.
Friday, Governor West.
Well, today, Governor Wes Moore answered questions about curbing the price tag of Kerwin. The governor didn't give a direct answer, but touted his support of the plan.
For our administration, we believe deeply in the blueprint.
Now, the debate over the Kerwin plan comes as the state faces a budget deficit. A report from the Department of Legislative Services said the state will see a $1.8 billion deficit by the end of the decade. At the end of 2025, it shows the state with a $418 million deficit. In 2026, it grows to $572 million. In 2027, a $328 million deficit. But then in 2028, it jumps to more than $1 billion. The governor asked if the state will turn to taxpayers for more money.
Have to be able to grow our economy. And that means make the proper investments in the things that we know are going to create jobs, that are going to create economic activity.
Again, not a direct answer from the governor. Republicans say the goal is to avoid tax hikes, but with cuts being made to department budgets, including an 8% cut to the Department of Transportation, they say this legislative session will be challenging.
There is no real appetite to increase taxes. So that then becomes the way, do we cut, the ways that we operate?
Right.
If we're not going to generate new revenue, or do we better manage the revenue that we have coming in?
Governor Moore says the cuts were made to help fill the budget gap he says his administration didn't create. Governor Larry Hogan left the state with the budget surplus. Fox 45 News spoke with Christopher Summers of the Maryland Public Policy Institute about where the money went. He says the deficit could have been prevented.
It could have been prevented, yes. And as I said, it's a never-ending budget deficit story, is even the projections from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 29, the state is projecting revenues to grow at 3.5%, but expenditures growing at 5%. When the math works that way, it normally does not end well. Particularly, it does not end well for Maryland taxpayers.
Fox 45 News will continue to follow your tax dollars and hold elected leaders accountable for the state budget. You can find our reporting on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
It's been a day for Birdland and a ride on the emotional roller coaster. First, a report from the Baltimore Sun stating, per their source, that the Orioles in the state of Maryland had reached a tentative 30-year lease deal to keep the Birds at Camden Yards. Considering the current lease is up December 31st of this year, it makes sense, right? Well, new reports from the Sun and the Baltimore Banner state that the deal has been put on pause by Governor Wes Moore due to some pushback from a key lawmaker. State Senate President Bill Ferguson has his concerns over the deal between the Orioles and the state of Maryland. Ferguson saying in part, quote, "I believe that the long-term lease for the use of the ballpark should not be conditioned on whether or not a private owner receives a 99-year ground lease to develop land owned by Maryland taxpayers." Governor Wes Moore's office responding to the Senate president saying the administration understands those concerns and the governor has made it clear he wants to work in partnership and move forward. The statement goes on to say, quote, "The administration will continue to work to address those concerns with the stadium agreement that the Maryland Stadium Authority, the Moore-Miller administration, and the Baltimore Orioles have put forth." Fox 45 has reached out to the Orioles for comment, but we are yet to hear back from them at this point in time. We'll keep you updated as we hear more. Guys.
Rocco, thank you. Pushback from the County Inspector General and other legal experts after Baltimore County Council Chair Julian Jones defends his amendments that would strip the IG of most of her powers. The red flags they're raising.
I'm Atrell Nashar in Washington with how Russia's invasion of Ukraine may have just been emboldened by a new announcement from Vladimir Putin.
We are getting ready for our next weather maker. That comes on Sunday, but already many parts of the region, now the Baltimore area, under an aerial flood watch. This runs through Monday as we get ready for heavy rain across our region. I'll have a look at the timing coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
And here's a live look at M&T Bank Stadium as we head to break. This is where the Ravens will be playing this weekend, taking on the Rams. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that he's seeking another term in his country's election for March of 2024. Now, that news comes as a U.S. official expects the war in Ukraine to intensify as winter gets colder and Congress stalls on providing them with more assistance. National correspondent Altra El-Nashar brings us the very latest from Washington.
He's led Russia for more than 20 years, but President Vladimir Putin wants more. Now, essentially guaranteeing he'll hold power until at least 2030 by saying he's running for re-election. What's different this time is Russian-occupied regions of Ukraine will participate in Russia's presidential election.
It's not really an election so much as Putin looking to kind of affirm and strengthen his own position in fighting this war.
Across Ukraine, people are bracing for wintertime attacks on critical infrastructure. Friday morning, these first responders in Kharkiv removed debris at one of the scenes of a Russian cruise missile strike, the first attack of its kind in nearly 80 days. Here in Washington, the White House is urging Congress to approve additional security assistance and quickly, painting a picture of the situation Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in right now.
You're looking out across that front and you see a lot of Russians. You see a lot of Russians that are getting increased in size because Mr. Putin continues to recruit additional manpower and throw them into the fight.
In a recent interview with a German outlet, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said they should be prepared for bad news out of Ukraine and urged member nations to ramp up production of ammunition. The White House says within a matter of weeks, it will run out of resources to provide Ukraine with security assistance.
And that's just, that should be unacceptable to everybody.
There's broad bipartisan support in Congress to get it done, but
I will not go back to South Carolina and try to explain why I helped Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel and did nothing to secure our own border.
Republicans insisting they condition new aid for Ukraine on border and immigration policy changes. No small task, it's long been one of the most difficult issues for Washington to address, even before war in Eastern Europe raised the stakes. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
The Baltimore Police Department is trying to find this woman caught on camera slashing a Tesla with a pair of scissors. We hear from the car's owner.
President Biden's son, Hunter, in more legal hot water. We're going to tell you what it means for the president as he gears up for his 2024 re-election bid.
We're following three big stories at 10:30. Legal troubles continue for Hunter Biden as he faces a second indictment, this time on tax charges. A look at whether that could impact his father's re-election bid. The Baltimore County Inspector General says her job is under attack. Her response to an amendment from the county council chair that could stop her ability to hold lawmakers accountable. And a story you're seeing first on Fox, a suspect captured on camera appearing to slash a woman's car in Upper Fells Point.
You hear about the crimes with the carjackings and things like that, but I feel like I live in a pretty safe area of Baltimore, and we've never had issues like this before.
New tonight, Baltimore police are trying to put out a name to the face. Fox 45's Vincent Hill spoke with the victim and has amazing video that you'll only see right here. Vincent.
Yeah, Kai, what's that saying? Never run with scissors. Well, Baltimore police are looking for a suspect who did just that.
Pay close attention to the top left of your screen. A woman can be seen exiting an apartment in Upper Fells and crossing the street.
Gutted is the word that comes to mind. I just almost sick to my stomach and just in disbelief.
What she does next, gut-wrenching, according to Sarah Patal. The entire incident captured on her car's surveillance cameras.
Goes directly to my car, sits on the curb, and then pulls a pair of scissors out of her pocket.
The woman can be seen looking around before carving into the entire driver's side of Sarah's car.
She's very angry. You can see the anger in her face as she is destroying my car. And I don't know why. And then she walks off.
Walking off and leaving behind thousands of dollars worth of damage. To make matters worse, do you know this woman?
No, not at all.
The vandalism, Sarah says, was unprovoked.
Why did you do this? I just don't understand. Proceeded on down to the driver's side.
Baltimore police are looking to identify the woman in the video, but are at a dead end when putting a name to the face.
They've basically told me until we can figure out who this woman is, because even though we saw her come out of that apartment building, we can't prove that she lives there. Until we have a name and an apartment number, they can't proceed with charges.
Meanwhile, Sarah wanting more to be done about Baltimore's crime crisis.
Just the punishment for the crime, to suit the crime. I feel like maybe that's lacking in the city a bit.
And this whole thing happened around 11:30 in the morning. Again, Baltimore police are looking to put a name with that face. We're live tonight in Baltimore. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Stories of car thefts and armed carjackings have some people telling Fox 45 they don't feel safe in their own neighborhoods. In just the last week, Baltimore County police arrested 4 teens for an armed carjacking at a Starbucks on North Charles Street. In Reisterstown, Baltimore County, police say would-be thieves targeted at least 3 cars, smashing windows and trying to hotwire their vehicles. Police said they were all Hyundais and Kias. This afternoon, police arrested 2 18-year-olds for a string of attempted and successful carjackings. Residents tell Fox 45 News who they think is responsible for the crimes.
Police say it's probably the kids, you know what I mean? They're the ones that's going around stealing cars.
It's almost like the city is a virus. It almost seems like the city's getting bored and they're starting to just come out into the county.
According to Baltimore police, nearly 10,500 cars have been stolen in 2023. That's a 220% jump over last year. In Baltimore County, police report nearly 4,200 attempted and successful auto thefts in 2023, a 189% increase.
These amendments would protect you should you be the subject of another investigation.
The bottom line is it's not about me. The bottom line is, as an elected official, I'm sort of like an open book. There's no, it's not about me or or it's about checks and balances and fair play. That's what it's about.
The battle brewing between the Baltimore County Council chair and the Inspector General continues. Fox 45 News sat down for an exclusive interview with Council Chair Julian Jones, who defended his push to weaken the IG's office. If passed, his policies would limit the watchdog's funding, operation, and ability to publish reports. Tonight, legal experts and IG Kelly Madigan are responding. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor reports.
The wording in red is what has Inspector General Kelly Madigan seeing red.
Any one of these proposed amendments were in fact to pass, it would
compromise the work of the office.
They're the last-minute markups on a bill 2 years in the making, a bill that was meant to strengthen her office based on recommendations cited in this thorough 100-page report the county paid $100,000 for.
No one saw, we didn't see this coming.
Joanne Antoine, one of 7 Blue Ribbon Commission members behind the report, calling the changes Julian Jones has drafted deeply concerning.
Honestly, the council president right now, I'd say in a lot of ways, this really is a slap in the face. They are going against our goal here of strengthening the office and instead are aiming to weaken it.
Among the amendments, pulling the IG's subpoena powers for private citizens, the potential for legal fees to be reimbursed for county employees involved in the IG's investigations, and the creation of an advisory board made up of mostly county officials who would review and approve the IG's reports before they can be published.
To be very clear, those items were not all my ideas. There was a compilation between myself, other members, stakeholders.
Which members?
Stakeholders. I'm not going to get into all the conversations that I've had with all the members.
In his sit-down with FOX45, Jones, who has previously been the subject of 2 IG investigations, refusing to say where exactly the amendments came from.
What do you make of that?
I have no reason to think that they're anyone's ideas other than Chairman Jones.
This as Madigan claims the rest of Baltimore County's council has expressed nothing but support for her office and the bill in its original form.
Frankly, Ms. Pryor, it's not about what I think. It's about what all of the other subject matter experts and other inspector generals testified to before the Blue Ribbon Commission. That is not a best practice, and the commission recognized that, and that's why they didn't propose it.
FOX45 also taking the amendments to Baltimore City Inspector General Isabel Cumming.
This advisory board is completely off the rails. No, that doesn't make sense. Never heard of that one either. That is actually completely unheard of in the Office of the Inspector General.
According to Cumming, the policies would leave any IG across the country shocked and confused. So much so.
The Association of Inspector Generals is going to be coming out with a statement on Monday to condemn these amendments because they are not best practices.
What does it say about the job that Kelly Madigan is doing that this council member is trying so hard to weaken her powers?
Shows incredibly well that Kelly Madigan is doing her job. And kudos to Kelly Madigan.
Rebecca Pryor, FOX45 News.
Well, next week, the County Council will hold a public forum for residents to weigh in on those amendments. Then the following week, they'll be brought to a vote. Well, as you've heard, the light rail in Baltimore has been shut down. The Maryland Department of Transportation says train cars pose a fire risk. They have to inspect them. And now thousands of people who had to find alternative ways in and out of the city are left high and dry. While shuttle bus service will be at all light rail stations, FOX45 spoke to people who say they're still feeling stressed about the change. In fact, some tell us they have no way to get to work or can't afford other transportation. Local economist Aniban Basu says this sudden suspension will impact riders and the city in a big way.
Not great news for the MTA, not great news for the Baltimore consumer, not great news for the Baltimore visitor, not great news for somebody trying to find parking. This is more expense for the citizen and less revenue for the state. So no one really wins from this.
While shuttle buses will be free to use, MTA officials admit the buses will take longer than the train. More legal woes for President Biden's son, Hunter, as he faces new federal charges related to the income from his foreign business dealings. The National Desk, Amira David, has more from Washington on what this means for the president as his reelection campaign gets underway.
The Justice Department Thursday charging Hunter Biden with 9 tax-related crimes, his second federal indictment in just 3 months.
In the detailed 56-page indictment filed in California, the younger Biden accused of being engaged in a 4-year scheme to not pay at least $1.4 million in taxes from 2016 through 2019, alleging he instead spent millions on an extravagant lifestyle, including over $680,000 on payments to various women and escorts, $188,000 on adult entertainment, and $71,000 on drug and alcohol rehab. While salacious, there's a reason those details are part of the government's case.
Those kinds of facts are the kinds of things that any prosecutor would want to include in an indictment to argue before the jury. This isn't some kind of ordinary run-of-the-mill tax case.
Hunter Biden's attorney, Abby Lowell, arguing this indictment and the previous federal gun charges against his client are political, saying based on the fact